Welcome back to the Grey Havens Hour. In the last episode, we stood with Elendil, the king who came out of the ruin of Númenor and carried what remained across the sea. We followed him from the exile to kingdom, from oath to battle, where he stood against the darkness that had shadowed the age. And there, at the edge of victory, he fell. The sword broke beneath him. The king was gone. And at that same moment, almost without pause, a son stepped forward. Tonight, we remain with that son. Not to excuse him, not to condemn him too quickly, but to understand the weight of the moment in which he stood, and the grief that shaped the choice he made. The field does not feel like triumph. The great shadow has been struck down, but the air is still heavy with ruin, and the silence after battle is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of exhaustion, of smoke, of the dead lying where they fell, of a world that has survived but not yet understood the cost of its survival. And there, where the war has reached its terrible height, Isildur stands beside his father. Elendil lies broken. Narsil lies broken. The king who had come out of the sea, who had spoken of remaining, who had founded realms in exile and stood against Sauron himself, is now a body on the ground. This is where Isildur's remembered choice begins. Not in a council chamber, not in a calm space of moral clarity, not in the distance from grief that lets later generations speak easily about what should have been done. It begins beside his father. It begins with the sword that crossed the sea, now lying in fragments. Before Isildur takes anything, he has already lost almost everything. Númenor is gone. His brother Anárion is gone. His father now lies dead before him. The old world has collapsed. The new world has been bought with blood. And the thing that remains on Sauron's hands seems, in that moment, less like a temptation than like the last visible sign of the enemy who has caused so much grief. But grief can change the names of things. It can make a danger look like justice. It can make a trophy look like payment. It can make a man believe he is holding meaning when he is already being drawn towards ruin. It would be easy to make Isildur small. It would be easy to remember him only as a man who failed, the man who refused, the man who kept what should have been destroyed. But Tolkien does not give us a man who begins in cowardice or greed. He gives us someone more complicated. Years earlier, in the final days of Númenor, Isildur had already risked his life for something fragile, something powerless, something that could not defend itself. When the white tree, Nimloth, stood under threat, marked for destruction by those who no longer honoured what it meant, Isildur did not merely mourn from a distance. He went secretly into danger and took from the tree a single fruit, preserving a living sign of the faithful before the tree itself was destroyed. That moment matters because it tells us what kind of man he was before the ring ever came into his hands. He was not only proud, he was not only reckless, he was not merely waiting for a chance to grasp power. He was capable of courage, loyalty, reverence, and sacrifice. He understood, at least in part, that some things are worth saving precisely because they are fragile, and that memory is not preserved. by sentiment alone, but by risk. The White Tree survives because Isildur dared to act before it was too late. That is why his later failure hurts more, not less. If he were only a villain, there would be no tragedy. If he were only corrupt, there would be no wound in the story. The sorrow of Isildur is that the same man who once preserved the living sign of hope would later preserve the one thing that should have been destroyed. He knew how to save what was precious, but at Orodruin, he mistook the ring for something precious. Sauron is defeated. That must be said plainly. The last alliance has not failed. Elendil and Gil-galad have not failed for nothing. The long resistance of elves and men has reached the place where the Dark Lord's power can be broken, and in that terrible encounter, Sauron's bodily form is cast down. But Tolkien's world rarely lets victory remain simple. Evil is defeated, but not fully ended. The enemy is overthrown, but the ring remains. And that changes everything. Isildur takes up the hilt shard of Narsil, not the sword as it was, not the bright weapon of his father whole in his hand, but a broken blade, a fragment of what has just been lost. With that shard he cuts the ring from Sauron's hand, and in doing so he completes, in one sense, the work of which so many had died. The hand is severed, the ring is taken, the war is won, and yet the danger has not vanished. It has changed form. That is one of Tolkien's deepest instincts about evil. It does not always continue by appearing strong. Sometimes it continues by becoming smaller, quieter, easier to hold, easier to justify, easier to mistake for something that belongs to us. On Sauron's hand, the ring is the weapon of a tyrant. In Isildur's hand, it becomes something else, a relic, a token, a payment, a thing with a story attached to grief. And that is where the tragedy begins to narrow, because the ring no longer needs to look like the enemy. It only needs to look like compensation. Tolkien gives us a word that explains Isildur's first understanding of the ring. Weregild, a man price, a payment for the slain. Isildur claims the ring is Weregild for his father and his brother, and that single idea changes the emotional shape of the moment. He does not first name it as a weapon of which to rule. He does not first speak of using it to master others. He names it as payment for what has been taken. That does not make the choice right, but it does make it human. He has lost his father, he has lost his brother. He has watched the long war devour almost everything it touched. And now, in the ruin of battle, he takes from the hand of the defeated enemy something that seems to answer loss with possession. This is the terrible mistake. The ring cannot pay for Elendil. It cannot pay for Anárion. It cannot restore the dead, heal the wound, or make the victory whole. But grief wants form. It wants something to hold. It wants the unbearable absence to become an object that can be named, grasped, kept, and understood. So Isildur takes the ring, and here compassion must not become excuse. To understand Isildur is not to absolve him. His grief is real, but the choice is wrong. He mistakes grief for justice. And because he does, the wound of the Second Age is carried forward into the Third. That is the tragedy. Not that Isildur desired evil in its purest form. Not that he stood there, thinking himself the servant of darkness, but that he took into his keeping something he had no right to keep, and he gave that act a name that made it seem bearable. There is a moment after victory when the story could have ended differently. The ring could have been destroyed. The power that held Sauron's malice in the world could have been unmade. The long shadow could have been prevented from stretching forward into the lives of generations not yet born. But Isildur refused. Elrond and Círdan urged him to cast the ring into the fire, and we must let the seriousness of that counsel stand. This is not merely advice offered in uncertainty. It is the clear recognition that what has been taken from Sauron must not be preserved as a trophy. But Isildur does not obey it. He keeps the ring. This is where the episode must be honest. Isildur is not innocent. He is wounded, yes. He is grieving. He has acted bravely before, and he will not be reduced to a single failure. But he refuses the destruction of the ring, and that refusal matters. It matters because some choices are still wrong even when we can trace the pain behind them. It matters because grief can explain a decision without cleansing it. It matters because the great disasters in Tolkien's world are not always born from simple malice. Sometimes they begin when a wounded heart tells itself that what it wants is just. Isildur leaves with the ring in his keeping. The fire is behind him. The chance has passed. And the story that might have ended there begins to move forward again, now burdened by the thing that should have been unmade. At first, perhaps, the ring could still be thought of as Weregild, a sign of victory, a private memorial, a thing taken from the enemy in payment of the dead. But the ring does not remain what Isildur names it. Slowly, uneasily, its nature begins to show itself. Isildur records what he observes, its heat, its markings, its strange resistance to harm, the way it seems more than a mere ornament or treasure. He is not ignorant forever. He begins to understand that what he has taken is not simply a token of victory, not merely a payment laid upon the scales of grief. The thing he called Weregild is beginning to reveal a will of its own. That is the dreadful moment of this part of the story. The ring becomes less like an object and more like a claim. It is not content to be held as memory. It draws, presses, waits, and works upon the one who keeps it. And Isildur, who once thought he had taken possession of it, begins to appear less like the owner than its keeper for a time. There is a deep unease in that, because the tragedy of the ring is never only that people desire it, it is that they misjudge the relationship. They think they are holding it, but it is also holding them. Isildur travels north with a smaller company, away from the great places of memory and into lands where the war already feels more distant. Perhaps, for a little while, it seems that the worst has passed. The ring is hidden in his keeping, troubling perhaps, but not yet understood by the world as the danger it truly is. Then the ambush comes. At the Gladden fields, orcs descend upon the company, and the journey turns suddenly into disaster. The men with Isildur are overwhelmed. The shape of the story tightens. The great decisions of kings and councils give way to mud, fear, water, arrows, and flight. Isildur does not remain to die in a gesture of empty pride. He tries to escape, and even that is not simple cowardice. He is not merely preserving himself, he is carrying something whose danger he has begun to understand. And survival now seems to carry its own responsibility. If he dies here, what becomes of the ring? If it is taken, then what? So he goes towards the river. The water is cold, the current is strong, the battle is behind him, and in that moment of desperation he puts on the ring. For a brief time he vanishes from sight, but not from judgment, not from consequence, not from the strange will of the thing he thought he possessed, because the ring does not belong to him. And in the water it leaves him. The invisibility falls, the arrows come, and Isildur, son of Elendil, dies not in the place where his father fell, not in the centre of a great battle, but in the river, in flight, betrayed by the very thing he had kept. When Isildur falls, the ring is not destroyed, it is lost. That difference shapes the Third Age. The sword remains broken, the king is dead. The ring has slipped from history into water, silence and waiting. This is the hard truth at the centre of Isildur's story. His failure is not final in the sense that all hope is ended, but it is real. It has consequences. It leaves a shadow under which others will one day have to live, and choices not made by him will have to be faced by people not yet born. That is why we should neither flatten him into a villain nor soften him into innocence. He is braver than the simplest accusation allows. He is more mistaken than sympathy alone can bear. He saved the fruit of the white tree. He stood in the line of Elendil. He cut the ring from Sauron's hand, and he kept it. All those things are true. Together, they make him tragic. And in Tolkien's world, tragedy is rarely useless, because even failure can become part of a longer mercy, when it is not allowed to have the final word. But the line does not end here. Somewhere beyond Isildur's death, beyond the river, beyond the broken remnants of war, the heirs of Elendil will continue into a harder and more hidden age. In the next episode, we turn to those who bore that testing, not in one great moment of decision, but in centuries of quiet endurance. The hidden line of the north, the chieftains and rangers who guarded what was left, often without thanks, without certainty, and without knowing whether the burden they carried would ever reach its answer. Until next time, may you have the courage to face the truth of what you carry, the humility to know when grief has clouded your judgment, and the grace to remain faithful even when the story you inherit has already been wounded.